Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. I'm your host Rob, and this video we're going to put the pieces together. Okay guys, welcome back. So, if you saw my prior film, you know that obviously I had a little puzzle thing to put together. I made a list, shared the list with you guys, my theories. Now we're going to take these puzzle pieces that I've gathered and we're going to put them together, and I'm going to try and come up with an idea of what this movie's about. So, I think Akira Takarada's character and Ken Watanabe, who's playing Serizawa, I think they're scientific buddies back in the 50s trying to create a way to counter the nuclear poisoning and radiation damage are done to people from the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We all know that the radiation that lingered in those areas lingered on for many years, well beyond 54. I think they are using certain insects and certain animals, specifically reptiles and maybe some spiders and toxic centipedes who are obviously to very resistant to these chemicals or these toxics. The ones I'm referring to that I spoke about in the last video, and just to get that name up again, it was the cinnabar moth, caterpillar. So, but what happens is while Watanabe, I'm working on it. While Dr. Serizawa wants to continue to develop this program to help people, I think Akira Takarada's character realizes that because of the mutations that are being caused by this experiment and these scientific experiments, he sees something bigger. He sees money. He sees power. They go their separate directions. I think in the middle of all that, during their experiments with reptiles, the experiments were failing miserably. The reptiles kept either succumbing to nuclear testing done on them to check their resistance, so on and so forth. Much like a lot of these crazy government science facilities do, they dump it into the ocean or whatever, thinking that these monsters are just dead. We've heard plenty of these things happen before in real life, where factories have been very much criticized or questioned about their practice of experiments on animals or creatures or animals, real life, and just disposing of the bodies in a very, very unsanitary way. So the lizards get dumped into the ocean. There's one lizard that could, or reptile, doesn't have to be any, and the reptiles they used were reptiles that can regenerate limbs or tails or whatever. They dump it into the ocean, and that's where we have the birth of Godzilla. There's one that happens to survive and just begins to evolve over time. Flash forward to current times. We've had the tsunami in Japan, nuclear meltdown. Juliette Binoche and Bryan Cranston, who work for the same organization that represents America, are there to help. Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, Ford, obviously part of the military, is also there for backup. Now, because of the nuclear meltdown, this is where Bryan Cranston realizes that there's something going on under the water using sonar. It's an anomaly, something he's never been seen. And just as he said, he begins to investigate and all hell breaks loose. Godzilla rises from the ocean, very pissed. What wakes him up is the insurgence of nuclear energy. Basically, it's like Godzilla's coffee. He's been slumbering for all these years because he hasn't had enough nuclear power to awaken him, but he's had enough that he's stayed alive and he has evolved and grown over time. So Godzilla hits the scene. Okay, so now, meanwhile, Akira Takarada, my theory that he's part of the MUTO organization and he's the big man on campus, over the years has continued his scientific enhancements on these creatures, and now they're starting to get out of control. They're starting to become intelligent. They are starting to think and become self-aware. He's losing control. These monsters are all over the place because MUTO organization has many different sites worldwide, and these monsters begin to, some of them being arachnids, begin to burrow, but there's one MUTO monster or set of monsters that are like the top dog on the chain. I believe, in my opinion, I could be completely wrong, and I probably am, that it's going to be a caterpillar-like creature that evolves into the flying Muto, which is going to be either a moth or a butterfly, but a mutated version, not related to Mothra. I think it's going to be in homage, but it's not going to look pretty. It's not going to be a good guy. It's probably going to be very ugly, and it's going to be badass. We'll get to that in a minute. So these Muto monsters begin to also use nuclear energy or nuclear power, patrolling whatever, or like I said in my prior video about the Muto worldwide, they begin to consume certain things. We know that based on the information I provided in my last video, that some of these caterpillars are very toxic and consume chemicals. I believe these Muto are out there, begin to consume chemicals, chemical plants, factory plants, things of that nature, and this is how they begin to grow. Some of them only grow to a certain size, while other ones be a little bit bigger. I think the arachnid portion, if that's what we're going to keep getting, I think the arachnid portion are going to grow to a certain size. They work as a collective. They communicate. They're subterranean. There are plenty of subterranean animals out there. There are spiders that are subterranean. Obviously, ants. There's grubs. You know what I mean? I mean, there's cicadas, locusts. We could go on and on. And we may see different animals like that, but I doubt it. They said there's only 2 creatures, so I think we're going to get a set of arachnids that Godzilla has to deal with, as well as the big monster. So Godzilla starts his warpath in Japan, traditionally destroying Tokyo. I believe that the airport scene will either take place in Japan or in San Francisco. If it takes place in Japan, that's when Godzilla will meet his first Muto. Basically, I think in this scene, he will begin to fight one, and then a collective of them will diverge on him, come in and try and attack him, and he'll be fighting 5 or 6 at a time, eventually destroying them and continuing his path. Now, his goal, in my opinion, get to every fucking nuclear power plant on the planet and drink and drink. And every time he does, he gets stronger. And he's not aiming to destroy, he just happens to be destroying. The guy's been asleep for 70 plus years. He just had his morning coffee with the freaking nuclear spill. Now he wants breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and away we go. So, he's on his warpath. The Mutos are worldwide. Everybody's fucking going crazy. Akira Takarada and Ken Watanabe's characters have a conflict during this whole attack that Godzilla has in Japan when he first rises up, destroys the facility that Bryan Cranston and Juliette Binoche are in. She gets trapped trying to save someone. She locks herself. She gets trapped in that room. Bryan Cranston goes to save her, realizes he can't. They have an emotional scene. She dies. He moves on. And Lieutenant Ford, played by Aaron Taylor, obviously doing his military thing there. Whatever the case may be. So, boom. He's off to San Francisco because that's where Godzilla's path of destruction is leading. I believe while he's on his path of destruction, he will have some really, really cool fights with the military. In particular, I think he's going to have a big fight on his way to Hawaii in the ocean. I think once he's heading towards Hawaii, Pearl Harbor will dispatch their military from the coast to intercept Godzilla. I think he makes waste of them. He rummages through Hawaii really quickly on his way to San Francisco. In between all this, we will see scenes with Elizabeth Olsen in San Francisco. I think there will be a Muto attack there sometime before Godzilla even arrives. I think that might even be what she's looking up at. So, during all this, Ken Watanabe is trying to help the military create a bomb that he thinks could stop the monsters, because during all his years of research, doing the kind of work, he may have an idea of how to stop them. So, he's in San Francisco. Godzilla makes landfall. decimates the city. Dr. Serizawa is barely alive. So now Aaron Taylor Johnson's character is part of a group that is going to be sent on a rescue mission to go in, get Serizawa, bring him out so that way he can help finish off this weapon that I do not think is a nuclear bomb or an oxygen destroyer. I just think it's a whole new weapon. Meanwhile, while they rescue him, we see the big flying MUTO, which has been cocooned throughout the movie. I believe there were two caterpillars paying homage to Mothra. One is the charred one that's dead that we see in the 2012 concept. The other one managed to be in a different place, cocooning himself, and finally bursting onto the scene. Humongous, nasty looking ass moth, or well, in this case, I think it's gonna be a moth. Nasty looking. I'm talking like this ain't no Mothra. We clearly know this is not a Mothra. It may be playing homage to the character, but Mothra is very pretty and very gentle and very friendly. This monster is badass. I'm talking looking like just something we've never seen before. This monster and Godzilla fight across the land of San Francisco, decimating everything around them, having a big fight. Godzilla gets his ass kicked, then he makes a big comeback, and in between all this, finally this bomb gets dropped. It destroys the MUTO monster. Godzilla plummets to the ground, looking dead. Humanity's cheering. And then finally, after a couple of minutes, he gets up. We see the silhouette part of the movie where things are falling off of him and crashing on him. And we hear helicopters. And while we don't see this in the trailer, I think in the helicopter you'll hear people, he's alive! Godzilla's alive! He turns around, he roars. And he looks around, he finishes decimating the city, and he takes off and lets people know that I'm going to leave for now because I'm tired, but I'll be back. That's what I think might happen in the movie. Will I be right? Absolutely not. I'll be 100% wrong, but it's always fun to speculate. I hope you guys enjoyed it. A little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but it's okay. I think you guys pretty much know where I'm going. So that's it for this, putting the pieces together, and we'll talk some more about this kind of stuff. Big deal, big deal. All right, guys, take it easy.